This is AI Studio, where top-notch experts analyze the latest trends of artificial intelligence. I'm your host, Leventa. Let's get started. Computer vision develops at breakneck speed, and it paves the way for breakthrough solutions in healthcare, transportation, manufacturing, and security. Facial recognition is just part of the deal. AI can read CT scan images a lot faster than doctors. Plus, they never get tired or distracted. Self-driving cars rely on robust computer vision engines, whereas state-of-the-art conveyor belts cannot be imagined without algorithms that have been trained to spot defective items. So, computer vision is a really complex issue. Luckily, though, every year Budapest hosts Stretch, a leadership and management gathering by Prezi, where top-notch experts share their thoughts on hot topics. That's where AI Studio headed to find out more about the latest computer vision trends. Great! Today we're reporting live from Stretch Conference, and our guest is Kevin Goldsmith, Chief Technology Officer of global identity verification provider Onfido. Thank you so much for joining us, Kevin. We're so glad to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here.
Right. So let's just jump right in, since you're a speaker at this conference,
Yes.
and you're going to discuss the main challenges to leading distributed teams. And even though we're going to talk about computer vision today, mostly,
Yes.
it's really exciting. It will be really exciting to hear whether AI can help in any way to lead distributed teams.
So I think that machine learning could potentially help identify issues. So it's very, very good at detecting sort of anomalies. So when you have a team that's spread out over a number of locations and you have infrequent communication between them, being able to recognize strange anomalies might be useful. But the problem is when you bring this into people management, it gets very creepy very fast. So I think there may be some potential, but I would be a little scared to implement it.
Okay, right. Then let's just stick to our original topic, which is like computer vision.
Sure.
And it's really ideal that you work for Onfido, which is a machine learning and computer vision company.
Yes.
So you have an amazing overview of where this tech is headed.
Right.
But let's face it. One part of this computer vision thing, facial recognition,
Yes.
is a bit controversial today. We've all heard that in certain American cities like San Francisco, the technology has been even banned.
Yes.
And one of the hot stories out there is now about Clearview, the startup which basically can identify anyone based on publicly available photos pulled from social media.
Right.
So we would be really excited to hear what you think about all this controversy and how do you evaluate the present state of facial recognition?
So for us, and for me personally, we very much come at facial recognition from a very strict privacy perspective, and so we do quite a lot of work on face matching. Usually for us, because we're trying to verify identity, it's usually face to document as opposed to face to random group of faces. But I think for the purposes of fraud, we do a little bit of that as well. But the intent is always around helping people protect their identity and helping businesses avoid fraud. And so we absolutely come at it from privacy first. So so I do have personally a bit of concern around these kind of large scale facial recognition technologies, partially because I don't think that technology, even the folks who are doing it quite well, is perfect yet. And the implications, you always have to think about the implications of FAR and FUR, the false acceptance and false rejection.
Right.
And so the question isn't, do I identify somebody I know has intent to do harm? The question is always, do I misidentify someone and then put them in jeopardy? And the technology is not good enough yet that you can guarantee that won't happen, right? The best technology still has a reasonably high error rate, where at scale you're going to take a lot of innocent people and put them in a bad situation. And so and then that's even before you get into the problem around training and bias, and that in itself means that this technology is still very much has a bias built into it a lot of the time that can also disproportionately affect some groups. And so for that reason, I have a lot of concerns about it.
Right, and so did former Google CEO Eric Schmidt, for
Yes.
example,
Yeah.
who said that even though Google has built this technology, but that's the only one that was actually withheld.
Yes.
And even when we talk about Onfido, sometimes user comments of Revolut pop up,
Right.
when they just wonder what happens to all those uploaded IDs and photos. And I really wonder whether working at Onfido, do you hear any related feedback from your clients?
So not so much from our customers. And when I talk about, I differentiate between customers and consumers. Revolut is a customer.
Right.
You creating a Revolut account, you're a consumer, and we support both. But we are very strictly GDPR compliant. We put a lot of effort into that. We are also there are now many different privacy regulations across the world. We are make sure that we support all those. But also, we don't, while we maintain identities for our customers, the customer controls, Revolut decides what we hold and what we don't. And so if you go to Revolut and say, please remove my data, it is also removed from us if we are holding it. But a lot of our customers are removing that data as well.
Facial recognition is big, but so are all types of biometric measures. We wanted Kevin to walk us through those other use cases as well. You mentioned that facial recognition is still far from perfect, right?
Yes.
Because there's still some potential that something might go wrong. But, like related biometrical identification is so sophisticated, like, fingerprints can be read and irises and everything. So where do you think this whole thing is headed?
That part's, biometric. The biometric auth is a significant effort for us. But that area is really exploding. So it's not just fingerprints; it's palm prints. It obviously, yes, iris. But right now there are many ways to sort of to identify you in a biometric way, including your typing cadence, your walking cadence, things like that. And for us, for what we do, that's important from a perspective, again, of trying to protect your identity. So understanding, once you prove you are who you say you are to us, we want to make sure that you are still that person, that somebody hasn't forced you to validate and then taken your phone and is now trying to do something bad with it.
How can you do that?
So we can do that through things like these different biometric measures. So that's absolutely something we look at and something we partner on with different companies.
Or they just cut off my finger like in every second movie
exactly.
now.
So if they cut off your finger to get into your phone, we can actually tell by, so us working as part of a risk metric. So before you can take, 10,000 euros or whatever out of your bank account, we may do a secondary, us or one of our partners will do a secondary authentication that isn't a fingerprint, that is face matching or a liveness detection as well, so that you're, the worst case scenario, they haven't killed you and then are holding the phone up to your face. So that's another area that we work on it also, which is making sure that you're alive, that's not somebody wearing a mask of your face.
Right,
that happens
that's awesome.
as well. Yeah. So all these things this area is very moving very fast. There's a lot of people in this space. It's a really exciting space.
Right, I guess now it's time for us to take a break, and we'll be back right after the news section. The Met Police has announced that it will start using controversial live facial recognition systems as part of its regular policing in London. The service has been trialing face matching technology on the streets of the capital since 2016, but will now significantly increase its use. The use of live facial recognition technology will be intelligence-led and deployed to specific locations in London. The rollout of the technology marks a significant expansion of surveillance technologies in London. Human rights groups have said, though, the use of facial recognition systems is intrusive and has the potential to erode privacy in public places. The technology has also been found to be inaccurate in some of its uses. Artificial intelligence is more accurate than doctors in diagnosing breast cancer from mammograms. The use of AI could eventually speed up diagnosis, as images can be analyzed within seconds by the computer algorithm. Reading X-rays is vital but time-consuming work, and there's an estimated shortage of more than 1,000 radiologists across the UK. This promising early research suggests that in future it may be possible to make screening more accurate and efficient, which means less waiting and worrying for patients and better outcomes. Right on! We're still talking to Kevin Goldsmith, Chief Technology Officer of global identity verification provider Onfido. And our main topic is computer vision solutions. Computer vision is already triggering huge revenues worldwide, but it's still just the start. Growth is expected to pick up even further.
You see the self-driving is obviously growing very, very quickly, is becoming very interesting, expanding into things like self-flying and those kinds of things. And I think that gets a lot of press. But also, healthcare is a really interesting field. So automatic processing of health records or X-rays, not to replace doctors, but to augment them. So that so this is one of the things we do, because we are not just a pure automation. We are automation plus human. And so we do things when we're looking at documents to signal to our experts, because we have trained people that will augment the technology, to signal to them what we think is an issue. Same thing for healthcare, right? And that may help us find problems much, much earlier. So there's healthcare. I think there's obviously, we talked a little bit about security and those kinds of things. That one's a little bit scary right now, but I think eventually we will figure out the issues around that and a way to do that in a way that's both privacy aware and public interest aware. There's a lot of other areas, things like better human-computer interaction mechanisms. So improving how we interact with computers, making computation much more ambient, so that I'm not interacting. Computer vision is a very critical part of that as well, so that I don't have to physically interact with technology. It just kind of happens around me. That's another really interesting area to me.
Now, we mentioned driverless technology already.
Yes.
And indeed, it's growing very, very fast. But there's still doubts out there. How fast this actually is gonna take over.
Yeah.
And I'm really wondering how optimistic you are in terms of the speed that this is gonna spread.
I went to university a long time ago, very long time ago now. But the university I went to, Carnegie Mellon, we had when I was on campus, we would have these army ambulances driving around at, a kilometer per hour, very slowly creeping around campus, driving autonomously in the very early days of self-driving. And you take that to where my car will keep its distance from other cars and stay in the lane and maintain speed and see things ahead. So I am very optimistic on self-driving. That is not necessarily my area, but just having seen that progress. However, I spoke to a class of lawyers who in a law school who were studying technology law.
Right.
And a couple of them had done projects on self-driving, And they assured me, I'm very optimistic. I think next few years, they assured me it was not going to be for a long time. So
Okay.
I personally would love to see that happen in the next 5 to 10 years, but maybe I'm a little bit optimistic about that.
Okay. Well, but as I just read the other day, valet parking is a reality already. So
Right.
I think we're getting there slowly but surely.
I think we're getting there. The problem is the problem today isn't the car driving; it's everyone else. It's the people. It's all the unexpected things happening that is still the problem. But I do think we will overcome that.
So what are you up to at Onfido at the moment? What is your next project?
So there's. For us, I mean, we're continually working to improve our computer vision, improve our automation. We are in a race always with people intending to commit fraud. We exist to help prevent fraud.
It turns out, though, that committing fraud can be a full-time job.
And so the people who commit this fraud, this is a job for them. This is a job. They get up in the morning, they get dressed, they go sit down. They try to commit fraud all day. If hopefully, for them, if they have a good day, they make some money.
Okay.
Then they come sit down and have dinner with their family, go to bed, watch TV, and then do it again the next day. Right? It's a job for them, and they are continually working to try and trick us. And we are continually working to catch them. And so the better we get, the better they get. They have access to all the same kind of machine learning tools. We have...
Not surprisingly.
Yeah, I think we have a much better research team than they do, but, we also deal with like state actors and those kinds of folks as well. So for us, it's always about improving and always about getting better, reducing that false acceptance reducing the false rejection, improving the experience for users. So that is just a continual effort for us, and expanding the number of documents we can do in an automated way, and all those good things. So we're busy for a very long time.
Kevin has been working in Europe for quite some time, so we thought it would be a shame not to ask him how, in his opinion, Europe is doing when it comes to AI. Before we wrap it up, I really wanted to ask you one more thing. How do you see this global AI arms race, so to say? Because there's a lot of competition out there.
Yeah.
We in Europe here sometimes have the feeling that we're kind of slow, and the regulation strangles everything with GDPR and everything. And whereas the US and especially China, there are no rules there.
Yeah.
And they're just light years ahead of us. How do you see this?
Well, the US is changing. I actually think GDPR was... for all the things that GDPR makes difficult, I think from a private, as a person, I think it did a lot of good, right? So I actually think GDPR is very, very successful for that reason. And I think now in the US, you have the California data protection regulations, which emulate a lot of GDPR, and if California does it, the whole US has to do it. So I think actually Europe's been on the forefront around privacy. And we work with lots of government bodies in Europe that are very thoughtful about how to do good AI while being aware of bias and those kind of things. So that's a place where I actually think Europe's ahead and doing well. So there is lots of good research happening in Europe. So in lots of countries, and good programs producing good research scientists. I don't think the difference is that significant anymore. I think what you have in the US, we're still getting going in Europe, is more investment. So the difference is there's a lot of capital in the US, China as well, to just fund that work and make it very attractive for companies and people to do it. So Europe has been catching up for a while. There's still a little ways to go, but what I am seeing based in London and previously in Sweden is that you're seeing more and more of the American funders. Not only are you seeing more funding happening in Europe for European companies, but now you're also seeing some of the American venture capitalists actually investing in Europe because they just see how much talent there is here, and that the the pieces are coming into place here as well.
Okay, so apparently there is reason for optimism here
Absolutely
in Europe as
reason
well.
for optimism.
Okay, that's really nice to hear that, and I guess that's where we're gonna end this show today. So thank you so much for your awesome insights, Kevin,
Thank you.
and hope to have you on the show at some later point.
I would love to. Thank you.
But now it's time to say goodbye. Thank you so much for listening. See you in the next episode. You listen to AI Studio, a podcast by the Hungarian Artificial Intelligence Coalition, which is the ultimate stakeholder forum of the local AI ecosystem. If you have any comments, ping us via our social media channels, and please help spread the word by sharing our contents. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show, and thanks a lot for listening. We'll be back in our next episode with more great insights on AI.